The warning lights came too late. Kate Morrison gripped the control panel as the landing craft shook hard enough to rattle her teeth. Red alerts flashed across every screen in front of her. The magnetic storm had appeared from nowhere, and now it was tearing through their ship's systems like a wild animal. "Hull breach in Sector 4, Pilot Greg Hayes shouted over the screaming alarms. His hands moved fast across the controls, but nothing responded. "We're going down." Kate looked at the other two crew members. Danny Cole had his harness tight, his face pale. Lisa Grant was already bracing for impact. They were survey team, not combat pilots. This was supposed to be a simple mission. Map the planet's surface, take some samples, return to the orbital station before dinner. The planet Vareth 7 filled the viewport, green and wild and completely wrong. They were falling toward dense jungle instead of the planned landing zone. The craft spun and Kate's stomach lurched. She could hear metal tearing somewhere behind her. "Brace," Greg yelled. Then the world turned into noise and pain. Kate woke to silence. Her head pounded and something warm ran down her face. Blood. She touched it carefully and felt the cut above her eyebrow. Not too deep. She could live with it. The craft was tilted at a bad angle, nose down in soft earth. Vines had already started growing over the cracked viewport. How long had she been out? She checked her suit's display. 20 minutes. It felt like seconds. "Greg?" Her voice came out rough. "Danny? Lisa?" No answer. Kate unbuckled with shaking hands and pulled herself up. The cabin was destroyed. Panels hung loose, wires sparked, and the emergency lights barely worked. She found Greg first, still in his seat. His eyes were open but saw nothing. Kate closed them gently. Danny and Lisa were in the back section. The hull breach had torn through where they sat. Kate turned away quickly. Her training said to check for survivors, but her eyes told her there was no point. She was alone. The realization hit her like cold water, alone on a hostile planet. 200 kilometers from the nearest outpost. The crash had thrown them way off course. Even if the emergency beacon worked, rescue would search the planned landing zone first. That could take days, maybe weeks. Kate forced herself to think clearly. Panic killed faster than any predator. She needed to assess what she had. Her hands moved on autopilot, checking her gear. One sidearm with 2 spare power cells, good for maybe 30 shots total. A survival knife. Her uniform jacket, designed to regulate temperature. A basic med kit. And the emergency pack from under her seat. She pulled out the pack and opened it. 3 days of ration bars, a water filter, basic camping gear, and a flare gun with 2 flares. That was it. That was all that stood between her and dying in this jungle. The emergency beacon was smashed, along with most of the ship's communication systems. Kate tried to fix it for an hour before accepting the truth. It was dead. She would have to walk out. 200 kilometers through unmapped jungle on a planet known for dangerous wildlife. She filled her canteen from the ship's water reserves while they still worked. Packed the rations carefully, said a quiet goodbye to her crew. Then Kate stepped out into Vareth 7. The air hit her first, thick, humid, and alive with sounds she didn't recognize. The jungle pressed in from all sides, massive trees with purple bark and leaves that seemed to move on their own. Everything was bigger here. Stronger. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth standard, and she felt it in her legs immediately. Kate checked her compass and started walking east. Toward the colonial outpost. Toward home. The ground was soft under her boots, covered in moss that released small clouds of spores when she stepped on it. She hoped they weren't toxic. The first day passed slowly. Kate moved carefully, watching for threats. The survey data said Vareth 7 had multiple apex predators, but details were limited. The planet had only been discovered 6 months ago. She was literally walking through unknown territory. She saw smaller creatures, things like birds but with scales. Insects the size of her hand that thankfully ignored her. Once something large moved in the undergrowth to her left and Kate's hand went to her sidearm. But whatever it was didn't attack. It just watched her pass and she felt its eyes on her back for the next hour. When night came, Kate found a tree with thick branches and climbed. She tied herself to the trunk with some cable from her pack and tried to sleep. Every sound made her jump. Screams echoed through the jungle. Animal calls that made her skin crawl. Something roared in the distance, deep and powerful enough that she felt it in her chest. She ate 1 ration bar, chewing slowly to make it last. 2.5 days of food left, then what? The thought tried to pull her down into fear, but Kate pushed it away. 1 day at a time, 1 step at a time. Morning came with strange bird calls and light that filtered through the canopy in shafts of gold and green. Kate climbed down stiff and sore. Her muscles ached from the crash and the uncomfortable night. She drank water, checked her compass, and kept walking. The second day was harder. Her body hurt and the jungle seemed to grow thicker. She had to cut through vines with her knife and the work exhausted her. Sweat soaked her uniform. She saw more animals, including something that looked like a deer but had 6 legs and crystal growths on its back. It ran when it saw her. By afternoon, Kate noticed the marks. Deep gouges in tree trunks too high for her to reach even jumping. 4 parallel lines, each cut deep into the wood. Claw marks. Something big made these. Something that used the trees to sharpen its claws or mark territory. She found bones next. A skeleton of some large animal, picked clean and scattered. The skull alone was the size of her torso. Whatever killed it had cracked the bones to get at the marrow. Kate's hand stayed on her sidearm as she walked faster. The smell hit her nose an hour later. Musk, thick and animal, mixed with the scent of rot and meat. A den. Somewhere nearby was a predator's home. Kate's training said to go around, avoid confrontation. She started to change direction. Then the rain came. Not normal rain, but thick drops that sizzled when they hit leaves. Acidic rainfall, something the survey notes had mentioned. It burned. Kate felt it on her exposed skin. Tiny points of fire. She needed shelter immediately, or the rain would eat through her uniform. The cave entrance appeared like a gift, dark and deep, set into a rocky hillside. Kate didn't think. She ran for it, ducking inside just as the rain got worse. Behind her, she could hear it destroying the jungle canopy, drops hitting stone with angry hisses. She was breathing hard, heart pounding. Safe. She was safe for now. Kate pulled out her small flashlight and turned it on. The cave stretched back into darkness. Water dripped somewhere deeper inside. And then Kate heard it, a sound that made her freeze. Small, weak, and desperate. Crying. Something was crying in the darkness, and it sounded almost like a human child. Kate raised her light and moved forward slowly. The sound got louder. Her mind raced through possibilities, but nothing made sense. There shouldn't be anything human on this planet except the colonists, and they were 200 kilometers away. The light found them in a hollow near the back of the cave. 3 small shapes huddled together, barely bigger than house cats. They had fur, dark and striped. 4 legs, long tails and faces that were distinctly feline but wrong in ways she couldn't quite name. Their eyes weren't open yet. Cubs. Predator cubs. Babies. They cried out when her light hit them, mewing and reaching blindly toward her. Looking for their mother. Looking for food and warmth and safety. Kate's breath caught in her throat. Where was the mother? Why were they alone? She should leave. Right now. These things would grow into the apex predators that marked those trees. The ones that could tear her apart without effort. Walking away was the smart choice. The only choice. The smallest cub cried louder, a desperate sound that cut right through her logic. Kate looked at it, really looked. It was thin. They all were, starving. Their mother hadn't come back. And they were dying slowly in this cave. Kate Morrison stood there in the darkness, listening to alien predator cubs cry, and made a decision that went against every survival instinct she had. She took off her jacket and knelt down beside them. Kate spread her jacket on the cave floor and watched the 3 cubs crawl toward the warmth. They moved slowly, weak from hunger and cold. Their little paws pushed against stone as they made their way to the thermal lining. When they reached it, they collapsed together in a pile of fur and quiet mewing sounds. She sat back and tried to think rationally. This was insane. She had 3 days of food for herself, and now she was considering feeding alien predators. Predators that would grow large enough to kill her in a few weeks. But looking at them, so small and helpless, Kate couldn't make herself walk away. The mother was dead. Kate was certain of that now. No predator mother would leave cubs this young for this long. Something had killed her, and these babies were the leftovers. Without help, they would die in this cave, slowly, alone. Kate pulled out one of her ration bars and stared at it. 3 days of food. That was all she had until she reached the outpost or starved. Sharing meant less for her. Maybe not enough. She broke off a piece and then stopped. Cubs this young couldn't eat solid food. She remembered that from some nature documentary she'd watched years ago. They needed milk or something like it. But she didn't have milk. She had protein bars designed for human adults. Kate thought for a moment, then pulled out her water bottle. She broke the ration bar into small pieces and added water, mashing it all together with her knife handle until it became a rough paste. It looked terrible. She had no idea if it would even be safe for them. The cubs smelled the food. Their heads lifted, noses working. They crawled toward her hand, mewing louder now, desperate. Kate scooped up the smallest one. It fit in her palm, warm and surprisingly soft. She could feel its ribs through the fur. "Easy," she whispered. "Let's see if you can eat this." She put a tiny amount of paste on her finger and held it near the cub's mouth. It sniffed, hesitated, then its small tongue licked the paste. The cub froze. Then it licked again, faster. Its mouth opened and it began to eat from her finger with desperate hunger. Kate felt something tight in her chest loosen. It worked, they could digest it. She fed the small one until it stopped eating, then moved to the next. The middle-sized cub ate just as eagerly. The largest one, slightly bigger than its siblings, ate the most before finally turning away satisfied. She'd used one full ration bar. 1/3 of a day's food, gone in 15 minutes to feed 3 alien cubs. Kate looked at her remaining supplies and did the math. At this rate, she'd run out in less than 2 days. And the cubs would need to eat again in a few hours. The smart move was still to leave them. Start walking again. Save her food for herself. But Kate looked at the 3 cubs now curled together on her jacket, their bellies finally full. They'd stopped crying. For the first time since she found them, they looked peaceful. "I'm an idiot," she said to the empty cave. But she didn't move. The rain continued outside, acidic drops that would burn her skin if she tried to travel. Kate was stuck here anyway until it stopped. She might as well rest. She settled against the cave wall, keeping her flashlight on low to save battery. The cub slept in a pile, breathing slowly. She must have dozed off because when she opened her eyes, it was darker. The rain had stopped. Kate checked her suit display. 4 hours had passed. Outside the cave, the jungle was quiet. Night was coming fast. The cubs were awake and crying again, already hungry. Kate's heart sank as she reached for another ration bar. She made more paste, fed them one by one. They ate everything she gave them. Growing things needed lots of food. She was watching her survival supplies disappear with each feeding. 2 ration bars left, maybe a day and a half of food if she was lucky. Kate ate nothing herself. Her stomach hurt with hunger, but the cubs needed it more. She told herself she could go without for a while. Adults could handle missing meals better than babies. Night in the cave was cold. Kate only had her undershirt now, and she shivered as the temperature dropped. The cubs were warm in her jacket, sleeping peacefully. She wanted to take it back, wrap it around herself. Her fingers reached for it twice, but each time she saw them sleeping and pulled her hand away. She could handle being cold. She'd been through survival training. Cold was just discomfort. It wouldn't kill her in one night. The cubs, though, they were so small. Without warmth, they'd die before morning. Kate wrapped her arms around herself and tried to sleep sitting up. Her teeth chattered. Her whole body shook. But she left the jacket where it was. Morning came slowly. Kate woke stiff and miserable, every muscle aching from cold and the awkward position. The cubs were stirring, making their hungry sounds. She fed them her second-to-last ration bar, making it into paste with the last of her clean water. They ate eagerly, growing stronger by the hour. She needed to move. Staying in this cave would kill her. Kate stood and looked at the cubs. They'd finished eating and were playing now, tumbling over each other on the jacket. Actually playing. They were recovering fast. "I have to go," she told them. They couldn't understand her, but she needed to say it anyway. "I can't take you with me. You'll be safer here." Kate picked up her jacket carefully, trying not to disturb them too much. The cubs protested, crying out as their warm bed disappeared. She put the jacket on and felt guilty immediately. It was still warm from their bodies. She walked toward the cave entrance. Behind her, the cubs cried louder. Kate kept walking. She made it 5 steps outside before the sound stopped her. It wasn't just crying anymore. It was screaming. Desperate, terrified screaming. Kate turned back. The cubs were at the cave entrance trying to follow her. The smallest one had fallen and was struggling to get up. They were too young to survive alone. Too young to hunt or defend themselves. She'd fed them, given them hope, and now she was leaving them to die anyway. "No," she said firmly. "I can't, you'll slow me down. I barely have food for myself." The largest cub stumbled toward her, falling every few steps. Its eyes were open now, bright gold and fixed on her. It cried out, and the sound was so desperate that Kate felt it like a physical blow. She lasted another 30 seconds. Then she cursed and went back. The cubs swarmed her boots, climbing over each other to reach her. Kate scooped them up one by one and put them in her equipment bag after dumping out everything except the absolute essentials. The bag wasn't designed for carrying live animals, but it would work. "This is temporary," she told them, "just until we find somewhere safe for you." She was lying to herself, and she knew it. There was nowhere safe. The jungle would kill them in minutes, and she'd just committed to carrying 3 rapidly growing predators across 200 kilometers of hostile terrain. With half a ration bar left, Kate started walking, the bag heavy on her back. Inside, the cubs settled down, warm and content. Every few hours, she stopped to feed them. She used her water filter on a stream and mixed the last ration bar into paste. The cubs ate it all. She drank only water. Her stomach cramped with hunger. Her head felt light. But the cubs were growing stronger. She could see it happening. They were twice the size they'd been when she found them. Their eyes were fully open now, watching everything. Learning. On the second day of walking, Kate nearly collapsed. She caught herself on a tree, breathing hard. No food for 2 days. The hunger was constant now, a grinding pain in her gut. Her hands shook as she fed the cubs what little she could find. Some berries that her scanner said were safe, mashed into paste mixed with water. The cubs ate it. They were less picky than she'd feared. But it wasn't enough. They were still hungry after, crying for more. Kate had nothing left to give. She searched for insects, found some grubs under rotting wood. The sight made her stomach turn, but she crushed them and mixed them with water. The paste was gray and smelled terrible. Kate gagged at the sight of it. But the cubs ate it eagerly. They weren't human. Their stomachs could handle things hers couldn't. She found more grubs, made more paste, fed them until they were satisfied. She ate nothing. There wasn't enough for both her and them. Kate told herself she could last longer without food. She was an adult, trained, strong, but her body was starting to disagree. Every step took more effort. Her vision blurred at the edges. That night she let the cubs out of the bag. They were too big to fit comfortably anymore anyway. They tumbled around her campsite, playing and exploring. Kate watched them from where she sat against a tree. They were beautiful in a strange way. Dangerous, yes, but also full of life and energy. The smallest one, the one she'd fed first, came to her. It climbed into her lap and curled up, purring. Kate hadn't known they could purr. The sound was deep and rumbling, different from a cat but similar enough. She put her hand on its back and felt the vibration. The other 2 joined them, piling on until Kate was covered in warm, furring bodies. They fell asleep like that, and for the first time in days, Kate felt warm. The cubs shared their heat freely, pressing close to her. She cried quietly, careful not to wake them. From hunger, from exhaustion, from the impossible situation she'd put herself in, but also from something else. Something that felt like purpose. These cubs needed her. They trusted her completely. And somehow that mattered more than the rational voice in her head screaming that she was going to die out here. Kate let them sleep on her through the night. When morning came, Kate woke to rough tongues licking her face. The cubs were trying to clean her, the way a mother would clean her young. She pushed them away gently and sat up. Her head spun. But the meal from yesterday had given her enough strength to move again. The small lizard hadn't been much, but it was better than nothing. She checked her compass and stood slowly. The cubs gathered around her feet, looking up expectantly. They'd grown again overnight. Already they were the size of medium dogs, though still gangly and awkward. Their legs seemed too long for their bodies, but they were healthy, fed, alive. Kate was none of those things. She could feel her body weakening, burning through reserves it didn't have. Her uniform hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. But she started walking anyway, east, always east, toward the colonial outpost that seemed impossibly far away. The cubs followed in a line. The largest one took the lead, walking just ahead of Kate. The middle one stayed at her side. The smallest brought up the rear, occasionally stopping to investigate interesting smells before hurrying to catch up. They were learning the jungle, understanding it in ways Kate never could. She'd started thinking of them with names, though she tried not to. Names made things personal, made it harder to let go when the time came. but her mind had already decided. The big one was Scout, because he went ahead and checked things first. The middle one was Ranger, steady and reliable at her side. The smallest was Pip, the one who'd brought her food. The one who'd saved her life. They traveled for 3 hours before Kate had to rest. She sat on a fallen log while the cubs explored nearby, never going far. They checked back with her constantly, making sure she was still there. Still okay. It was strange being the weak one in the group. Usually adults protected the young, but here the roles were blurring. Scout found something and called out. Not a cry but an actual vocalization, a chirping bark that meant something. The other two ran to him immediately. Kate followed more slowly, her hand on her sidearm. The cubs were gathered around a small burrow in the ground. Scout dug at the entrance while Ranger and Pip waited. Smart. They were working together. Kate watched as Scout pulled out something that looked like a cross between a rabbit and a rat. The creature tried to run, but Ranger pounced on it. Quick. Efficient. They were learning to hunt. The cubs looked at her expectantly, their prize held gently in Ranger's mouth. Waiting for her approval, Kate felt her throat tighten. They wanted her to have it. They'd hunted for their mother, for their pack member. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to let them eat it, but her body was screaming for food, and refusing might confuse them. Might make them think they'd done wrong. Good, she said, her voice rough. Thank you. Ranger brought the creature to her feet and dropped it proudly. The 3 cubs sat and watched as Kate prepared it with her knife. She ate half and gave them the rest to share. It wasn't much, divided 3 ways, but they seemed satisfied. Not with the amount, but with the act itself. They'd provided for the pack. That mattered to them. They walked until afternoon when the heat became oppressive. Kate found shade under a massive tree with roots that formed small caves. The cubs immediately claimed the coolest spot, piling together. Kate sat nearby, too tired to move further. Her feet were covered in blisters. Her legs shook with exhaustion. She must have fallen asleep because she woke to Pip pushing his nose against her cheek. Insistent, worried. Kate opened her eyes and saw the light had changed. Late afternoon. She'd slept for hours. The cubs were restless, pacing around her. I'm okay, she lied. Just tired, Scout barked at her, that same chirping sound. Then he moved toward her and grabbed her sleeve in his teeth, pulling, trying to make her get up. Kate didn't understand at first. Then she heard it, a low rumble in the distance. Not thunder. Something alive. Something big. Kate forced herself to stand. The cubs immediately started moving, and she followed. They seemed to know where to go, staying in thick cover, moving quietly. Scout kept checking on her, making sure she kept up. The rumbling sound grew louder, closer. Through the trees, Kate saw movement. Something massive, walking on 4 legs. It stood twice her height at the shoulder, with thick armor plating and a head like a battering ram. A herbivore, probably, but herbivores could be just as dangerous as predators when threatened. This thing could crush her without even trying. The cubs led her in a wide circle around the creature's path. They moved carefully, instinctively understanding the danger. Kate followed their lead, trusting their jungle instincts more than her own limited knowledge. They cleared the area without incident, the massive creature never noticing them. When they were safe, Kate sank to the ground. Her heart hammered in her chest. That could have gone so wrong. If she'd been alone, she might have walked right into that thing. But the cubs had sensed it first. Had known to avoid it, thank you, she whispered. Scout bumped his head against her hand. Ranger pressed close to her side. Pip climbed into her lap, heavier now but still seeking comfort. They were taking care of her. Actually taking care of her. That night they caught 2 more of the lizard creatures. Kate ate one and saved the other for morning. It wasn't enough. She needed more calories to keep walking. But it was better than starving. The cubs seemed to understand that hunting was their job now. They brought her food and she provided safety, direction, and the knowledge of where they were going. It was a partnership. Unlikely and strange, but it worked. On the 5th day of walking together, Kate's sidearm saved their lives. A pack of smaller predators, lean and quick with too many teeth, caught their scent. There were 6 of them, working together to circle Kate and the cubs. Opportunistic hunters. They saw easy prey. The cubs immediately moved into formation. Scout, Ranger, and Pip placed themselves between Kate and the threat. Their lips pulled back to show developing fangs. Their bodies went low and ready. They were barely half the size of the attackers, but they didn't back down. Kate pulled her sidearm and fired a warning shot into the air. The crack of energy discharge made the pack hesitate. But they didn't run. They were hungry, and 6 against 4 seemed like good odds to them. One of them darted forward, testing. Scout met it with a snarl that seemed too big for his body. He lunged, and though he was smaller, he was fearless. The attacker dodged back, surprised. The pack leader, a scarred male missing half an ear, made a decision. He rushed forward, aiming for Kate directly. Kate fired. The shot caught him in the shoulder, not lethal but painful. He yelped and fell rolling. The rest of the pack hesitated. Kate took advantage, firing twice more. Not to kill, just to scare, to show them this wasn't easy prey. The cubs howled together, a sound that made Kate's hair stand up. It echoed through the jungle, deep and threatening. A warning, a promise of violence. The pack leader got to his feet and looked at his pack, then at Kate and the cubs. The math had changed. This wasn't easy anymore. This was dangerous. He turned and ran. The others followed, melting into the jungle. Kate kept her weapon up until she was sure they were gone. Then she lowered it, her hands shaking. That had been close. Too close. The cubs came to her immediately, pressing against her legs, checking on her, making sure she was unharmed. Kate touched each of them, running her hands through their fur. They'd stood their ground. 3 juvenile predators against a full hunting pack, and they hadn't run. "You're crazy," she told them. Brave and crazy, Scout butted his head against her hand, demanding more affection. Ranger and Pip pushed close, wanting reassurance. They were still young, still learning, but they'd been willing to die protecting her. That realization hit Kate hard. These weren't just animals following her. This was a pack. This was family. She checked her sidearm's power display. 1 shot left in this cell, 1 spare cell remaining. 30 shots total had become 1. She'd used 29 rounds scaring off that pack and dealing with other dangers over the past days. Her primary defensive tool was almost gone. Kate holstered the weapon and kept walking. The cubs followed, more alert now. They'd had their first real fight. They understood danger better now, understood that the jungle could kill them. But they also understood that together they were stronger. The days blurred together. Kate walked, rested, walked more. The cubs hunted, bringing her small prey. It was never enough. She was losing weight faster now, her body consuming itself. But she was making progress. Her suit's display showed 70 kilometers to the outpost. Less than half the original distance. She might actually make it if she didn't collapse first. On the 7th day, Kate fell. Not just sitting down tired, but actually falling. Her legs gave out and she hit the ground hard. The cubs rushed to her, crying out in alarm. Kate tried to get up and couldn't. Her body simply refused to respond. Everything felt heavy and distant. She was going to die here. So close to safety, but not close enough. Kate closed her eyes and tried not to cry. She'd done her best. Kept the cubs alive. That had to count for something. Pip licked her face frantically. Scout barked at her, trying to make her move. Ranger paced around her, agitated. They didn't understand. Didn't know why their mother wouldn't get up. Kate wanted to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Too tired. Too weak. The cubs lay down around her, forming a circle, keeping her warm, protecting her even though she couldn't protect them anymore. Kate felt their bodies press. Kate woke to sunlight on her face and the weight of cubs pressed against her. She was alive. Somehow impossibly still alive. Her body felt like it belonged to someone else, heavy and unresponsive. But her heart was beating. Her lungs were working. She'd survived another night. Pip noticed her eyes open first. He made a happy chirping sound and licked her cheek. Scout and Ranger woke immediately, crowding closer. They'd been worried. Kate could see it in how they moved, checking her over with their noses, making sure she was really okay. "I'm here," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. Still here. She needed food. Needed it desperately if she was going to keep moving. Kate tried to sit up and managed it on the 3rd attempt. The world spun, but she stayed upright. That was progress. The cubs watched her carefully, ready to catch her if she fell again. Scout left suddenly, trotting into the jungle with purpose. Ranger stayed close to Kate while Pip settled in her lap. They were dividing responsibilities now. One to hunt, one to guard, one to comfort. Pack behavior. They'd figured out how to keep her alive better than she'd figured it out herself. Scout returned 20 minutes later, dragging something bigger than his previous catches, a creature the size of a small turkey. covered in feathers and scales. He'd gone further out to find bigger prey. Kate's throat tightened with emotion as he dropped it at her feet, looking proud. "Good boy," she said, meaning it. "So good." She prepared the meat with shaking hands, eating more than she should have, but needing the energy. The cubs shared the rest without complaint. They were getting better at hunting, learning fast. In a few weeks, they wouldn't need her anymore. They'd be able to survive on their own. That thought hurt more than Kate expected. She'd lose them eventually. They'd grow wild and free, and she'd just be a strange memory from their childhood, if they even remembered her at all. But that was how it should be. They belonged to this jungle, not to her. Kate forced herself to stand. 68 kilometers left. She could do this. One step at a time. The cubs fell into their traveling formation, with Scout ahead, Ranger beside her, and Pip behind. They moved as one unit now, each knowing their role. The day passed in a blur of exhaustion and determination. Kate's legs moved on autopilot. Her mind drifted, barely present, but the cubs kept her going. When she slowed too much, they encouraged her. When she stopped, they waited patiently. When her direction wavered, Scout corrected their path. He'd learned to read the compass somehow, understanding that they needed to go toward the setting sun. They found a stream in the afternoon, and Kate collapsed beside it. She drank deeply, letting the cool water revive her slightly. The cubs played in the shallow water, splashing and chasing each other. Normal cub behavior. For a moment, they weren't survivors struggling through hostile jungle. They were just young things enjoying life. Kate watched them and smiled despite everything. They deserved this. Deserved to play and be young. She'd given them that at least, even if it cost her everything. That night, as they settled to sleep, Kate felt something change in the air. A charge like before a storm. The cubs felt it too. They pressed closer to her, nervous. Scout kept getting up to pace, sniffing the air. Something was coming. Kate heard them before she saw them. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving through the jungle with the coordination of experienced hunters, not the opportunistic pack from before. These were different, bigger, more dangerous. She grabbed her sidearm and stood, her body protesting every movement. The cubs moved into defensive positions immediately, forming a wall between her and the approaching sounds. Kate's hand shook as she aimed toward the darkness. One shot left in this power cell. One spare. She couldn't afford to miss. The first predator emerged from the shadows. It was massive, easily 3 times Scout's size. Built like a tiger but with 6 legs and crystal formations growing along its spine. An adult, a real apex predator. And there were more behind it. Kate counted 4, maybe 5. A hunting pack in their prime. The lead predator stopped when it saw them. Its eyes, deep green and intelligent, focused on Kate, then on the cubs. Recognition flickered across its features. These were the same species. The cubs were young versions of these massive killers. The cubs didn't back down. Scout stood his ground, snarling. Ranger and Pip flanked him, showing their tiny fangs. Protecting Kate with everything they had. But they were babies facing adults. This wasn't a fight they could win. The lead predator made a sound. Deep, questioning. It stepped forward slowly. Not aggressive, but testing. Trying to understand. What was a human doing with their cubs? Why were these juveniles defending it? The situation didn't make sense according to predator logic. Kate kept her weapon steady, though her arms ached. She couldn't kill all 5, maybe not even one with her current weakness. But she'd try. She'd fight until she couldn't anymore because these cubs had done the same for her. "Stay back," she said, knowing they couldn't understand her words but hoping her tone was clear. "They're under my protection." Scout barked at the adults, that same warning sound he'd made before. Then something remarkable happened. He moved forward, placing himself between the adult pack and Kate, claiming her, declaring her as pack. His pack, Ranger and Pip, joined him, standing together. 3 juvenile predators claiming a human as their own, telling the adults that she was theirs to protect. It was insane. It went against nature. But they did it anyway. The lead predator tilted its head, studying them. The other adults moved to flank, surrounding Kate and the cubs. This was it, the end. Kate raised her weapon, choosing her target. She'd take the leader first. Maybe that would make the others hesitate long enough for the cubs to run. But the attack never came. Instead, the lead predator made a different sound. Lower, softer, almost gentle, the kind of sound a mother makes to calm frightened young. The other adults stopped moving, waiting. The lead predator approached slowly, Scout tensed but held position. The adult sniffed at him, then at Ranger and Pip, checking them over. Kate watched in confusion as the massive predator examined each cub carefully, its movements careful and non-threatening. Then it looked at Kate. Really looked at her. Its eyes were intelligent, assessing. It could see how thin she was, how weak, could probably smell the desperation and hunger on her, could see that she was dying slowly. And yet the cubs were healthy, fed, protected. The lead predator made its decision. It turned and walked away, calling to its pack. They followed without question, melting back into the jungle, leaving Kate and the cubs alone. Unharmed, Kate's legs gave out. She sat down hard, her weapon dropping to her side. They'd been spared. The adult predators had recognized something in the cubs' behavior, had seen the bond and chosen to respect it, had let them go. The cubs rushed to her, climbing over each other to reach her. They were shaking, adrenaline wearing off. Kate wrapped her arms around them, holding them close. They'd been willing to die for her, had stood against adults of their own species to protect a human who'd done nothing but slow them down. "You're all insane," she told them, crying now. Completely insane. They stayed there for a long time, a tangle of human and alien predator, all of them alive when they should have been dead. When Kate finally moved again, her suit display showed a new message. Emergency beacon detected. Response signal received. She blinked at it, not understanding at first. Then it hit her. Her beacon. The broken emergency beacon from the crash. Something had activated it. Maybe the magnetic interference had cleared. Maybe it had always been sending a weak signal she couldn't detect. But someone had heard it. Someone was responding. Kate checked the coordinates. A rescue team was en route to her crash site. They'd find it empty and start searching from there, following her trail. They were coming. She just had to survive long enough for them to find her. "We're going to make it," she told the cubs. "Someone's coming." Scout, Ranger, and Pip looked at her with their golden eyes, not understanding the words but sensing her hope. They pressed closer, offering comfort and warmth. Their way of saying they'd stay with her, they'd keep her alive until help arrived. Kate started a fire that night, something she'd avoided before to stay hidden. But now she wanted to be found. Wanted the rescue team to see the smoke and come to her. The cubs watched the flames with fascination, learning this new thing their human mother could do. She fed them the last of Scout's catch and ate nothing herself. Her stomach had stopped hurting days ago, gone beyond hunger into a numb acceptance. But it didn't matter now. Help was coming. She just had to last a little longer. The cubs curled around her as darkness fell, their bodies warm against the cooling night air. Kate listened to their breathing and watched the stars appear through gaps in the canopy. She'd made it. They'd made it together. In the morning, they'd start walking again. Toward the outpost. Toward rescue. Toward whatever came next. But for now, in this moment, they were safe. They were together. They were pack. Kate closed her eyes and let herself rest, surrounded by 3 predators who'd chosen her. 3 impossible friends who'd saved her as surely as she'd saved them. The universe was strange and unexpected, but sometimes, just sometimes, it offered small miracles. This was her. The sound of engines woke Kate 3 days later. She'd been drifting in and out of consciousness, kept alive by the cubs hunting and their warmth at night. The sound was distant but unmistakable. Human technology, a search craft moving through the jungle canopy. Kate tried to stand and fell immediately. Her body had nothing left to give. The cubs surrounded her, agitated by the noise and her distress. Scout barked up at the sky, trying to challenge the strange flying thing. Ranger pressed against Kate's side, supporting her. Pip ran in circles, nervous energy with nowhere to go. "Flare," Kate whispered. Her emergency pack. She'd saved the flares for this moment. Her hands shook as she pulled out the flare gun. Loading it took 3 attempts. Her fingers wouldn't cooperate properly, but she managed it finally, raising the gun toward a gap in the canopy. The flare shot up with a bright streak of red, punching through leaves and vines to explode in the open air above, a brilliant star burning against the morning sky. The cubs jumped at the sound, startled. Kate collapsed back, the gun falling from her hands. She'd done it. Signaled for help. Now they just had to wait. The engine sound changed direction. Coming closer. They'd seen the flare. Kate closed her eyes in relief. It was over. The nightmare was finally over. She'd survived. The rescue craft appeared overhead 10 minutes later, hovering above the jungle. Spotlights swept through the trees, searching for her. Kate tried to wave but couldn't lift her arm high enough. The cubs, though. The cubs were moving, barking at the strange machine. The lights found them immediately. The craft landed in a clearing 50 meters away. Kate heard doors opening, voices shouting, footsteps running through the undergrowth. The cubs went defensive immediately, placing themselves between Kate and the approaching sounds. They couldn't see who was coming, only knew that strangers were rushing toward their mother. "Stand down," a woman's voice called out. Commander Linda Hayes appeared first, weapon drawn but pointed at the ground. Behind her came a full rescue team, 5 soldiers in combat gear. They stopped dead when they saw the cubs. "Contact," one soldier said, raising his weapon. 3 hostile targets, juvenile class. "They're protecting something." Scout snarled at the soldiers. Ranger and Pip joined him, their hackles raised. They'd fought off predators together. They'd face these strange humans the same way if they had to. Kate tried to speak, to tell them to stand down, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Hold fire," Commander Hayes ordered. She was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and sharp eyes that assessed situations quickly. "They're guarding something. Someone. Weapons stay down until we know what's happening." She stepped forward slowly, hands visible and empty. The cubs tracked her movement but didn't attack. Hayes saw Kate then, lying on the ground behind the defensive line of predators. Her face went pale. "Dear God, Morrison? Lieutenant Kate Morrison?" Kate managed a weak nod. Hayes started forward and Scout lunged at her with a warning snap. He didn't bite, just made his message clear. "Don't touch our mother." Hayes stopped immediately, hands up. "Easy," she said softly. "I'm here to help her." "To help your friend." Scout didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He looked back at Kate, uncertain. She needed help. He knew that. But these strangers were dangerous, unknown. His instincts warred between protecting her from them and getting her the help she clearly needed. Kate raised one hand, using the last of her strength. She touched Scout's head gently. The cub looked at her with those golden eyes, waiting for direction. Kate pushed weakly, trying to move him aside, telling him it was okay. These humans were safe, Scout whined, unhappy. But he stepped aside. Ranger and Pip followed his lead, moving away from Kate but staying close, ready to intervene if the strangers hurt her. Hayes approached carefully, kneeling beside Kate. "What happened?" Hayes asked, already pulling out her medical scanner. The device beeped as it assessed Kate's condition. Hayes' expression grew grimmer with each reading. "You're severely malnourished, dehydrated, running on empty. How long have you been out here?" 9 days, Kate managed. "Crash, crew dead." "I walked. 200 kilometers. Hayes looked at the readings again. "That's impossible. Not in your condition. Not with no supplies." She glanced at the cubs who were watching her every move. "And definitely not with 3 juvenile predators following you." "They're with me," Kate said. Each word took effort. "My pack. Your pack." Hayes studied the cubs more carefully. They were well-fed, healthy, alert. Not the starving orphans they should have been. Then she looked at Kate, who was clearly dying of starvation. Understanding dawned on her face. "You've been feeding them. You gave them your rations. They needed it more." "Morrison, that's insane. They're predators. They would have been fine on their own." Kate shook her head weakly. "They were dying, cubs, just babies. I couldn't leave them." Hayes was quiet for a moment. Then she stood and called to her team. "Get a stretcher. IV fluids, start treatment immediately. And someone contact xenobiology. They're going to want to see this." 2 medics rushed forward with equipment. The cubs went on alert again, growling. Kate touched Scout's head again, trying to calm him. But as the medics reached for Kate, Ranger snapped at them. Not attacking, but making it clear they couldn't take her. "Problem," one medic said nervously. "They won't let us near her." Hayes watched the standoff, thinking. Then she made a decision that would change everything. "Bring the containment crate. The large one. We're taking them with us." "Commander, that's against protocol," a soldier objected. "Unknown predators on a rescue craft is a contamination risk. Not to mention dangerous. Look at them," Hayes said firmly. "Really look. They're protecting her. They've kept her alive out here when she should have died. That's not random predator behavior. That's pack loyalty. We separate them from Morrison and they'll fight us. People will get hurt, maybe killed. We take them together or we don't take her at all. Your choice, the soldier backed down. The team brought out a large containment crate, more like a transport cage with ventilation and padding inside. Hayes opened it and looked at Kate. Can you call them? Get them to go inside? Kate tried. She made a small gesture to the cubs, patting the ground beside her. Scout came immediately, pressing close. Ranger and Pip followed. When the medics brought the stretcher and lifted Kate onto it, the cubs went frantic. They jumped and barked, trying to reach her. Put the stretcher in the crate, Hayes ordered. Let them stay with her during transport. It was against every safety protocol. It was risky and potentially deadly, but the medics did as ordered, placing Kate's stretcher inside the large crate. The cubs scrambled in immediately, surrounding her. Scout lay across her legs. Ranger pressed against her side. Pip curled on her chest, purring. They were together. That was all that mattered to them. Hayes secured the crate door, leaving it transparent so they could monitor everyone inside. The rescue team loaded the crate onto the craft carefully. Through it all, the cubs stayed with Kate, their eyes never leaving her face. The flight back to the outpost took 30 minutes. Kate drifted, barely conscious. The medics monitored her through the crate's sensors, feeding instructions to their equipment inside. IV fluids dripped into her arm. Medication stabilized her failing systems. Slowly, her body began responding to treatment. The cubs watched everything with suspicious eyes. When the IV line shifted, Scout sniffed it carefully. When the monitoring equipment beeped, all three cubs tensed. But they didn't attack. They trusted that these humans were helping their mother. That was enough. They landed at the Colonial Outpost's medical facility. A full xenobiology team was waiting, along with security personnel. Hayes had called ahead, warning them about the unusual situation. Still, the sight of Kate Morrison being carried out on a stretcher surrounded by 3 alien predators caused a stir. She's going to Medical Bay 1, the chief doctor announced. Those things go to containment. No, Kate said, her voice stronger now that fluids were flowing into her system. They stay with me. Morrison, that's not possible. They're dangerous animals. They're my pack, Kate said firmly. They saved my life. I'm not abandoning them now. Hayes stepped in. She's right. We separate them, and they'll destroy whatever cage we put them in trying to get back to her. I've seen their loyalty firsthand. These 3 predators chose her over their own survival. That's unprecedented. That means something. The doctor wanted to argue. Kate could see it in his face. But Hayes outranked him, and she'd made her decision. A private medical room was prepared, large enough for Kate's bed and space for the cubs. Security cameras were installed. Armed guards were posted outside. Compromises that satisfied everyone's concerns. Kate was moved to the room, and the cubs followed immediately. They sniffed every corner, checking for threats. Then they settled around her bed, claiming positions. Scout at the foot, watching the door. Ranger on her left side. Pip curled on the bed itself, his head on her pillow. Protective even here, in this safe place. The doctors worked around the cubs carefully. Blood tests, scans, nutritional supplements. Kate's body was eating itself, they said. Another few days and organ failure would have started. She'd come so close to dying. Too close.